Hello there. I want to talk today about small homes and are they relevant? Are they worth our time? That kind of thing. You know, you see the YouTube channels. You see it on mine a lot too. Okay. The guys that are teaching honing and stuff, they got the big, huge stones, something like this, or something like this, or you see some of them that have like the big 3.5 wide by 10 or 12 inch Arkansas stones or whatnot. You know, the trend is big, big, big. And you can get a misconception that that's the only thing worth fooling with, and that you shouldn't waste your time and if you don't have the money to learn how to hone, because you need all of that, and you don't really need all of that. A lot of the reason that these guys use those stones is, number one, the professional stones are bigger. Okay, and if you're going to be a pro, if you're going to hone as a pro, or if you get into something like honing and you want what the pros use, then you end up buying stones like that eventually. So that's a part of that. But there are plenty of stones that work just as well that are not really considered professional. A tool is a tool. As long as the tool is made well, it's the person using the tool that decides the outcome. That's the truth. There's an old adage, it's a poor craftsman that blames his tools. Same deal. It's the responsibility of the user of the tool to get the very best out of it, no matter what the quality of it is. Once you choose it, if it's appropriate to what you're doing, it's your job to get the most out of it. But another reason that they use these kind of stones also is optics. Excuse me. I perpetually have like little colds and stuff like that in the wintertime. It's part of some health problems that I have that I'm not going to go into. But so in the winter months, I'm constantly kind of sick almost all the time. So just so you know what's going, why I'm doing that. I'm coughing and sniffing and snorting and carrying on. But another reason that they use these is optics. They're doing videos. It looks good. It's also easier for you to see what they're doing if they have a large surface to work on, that kind of thing. So there are different considerations that are going on when you see a YouTube video as opposed to if you were actually doing it yourself. It's the same thing a lot of times with it's particularly like my woodworking channel. If you watch it, I might put a 12-minute video up, but I got 3 hours worth of stuff that 12-minute video was condensed down to, because I want to put the relevant information, as much relevant information as I can, in a small enough video that people will watch it. So there are other considerations for that. But for a home user, are smaller stones any good? Now, I consider a smaller stone 6 inches long or under. Okay. So, what I would say is this pertains to any kind of edged implement. Alright? Whether we're talking knives or razors or anything else. Tools, that kind of thing. But there's another old adage. You fit the stone to the knife. Or you fit the stone to the tool. And what I mean by that is, okay, take this Victorinox. Now I just sharpen this. I'll show you what I sharpened on here in a minute. Last night. It's got a scalding edge on it, and they take one really easily anyway. But I didn't hone this tiny little blade on this huge stone, or on this huge stone. Okay? I don't need it. The old adage, the way that I was taught, is you want a stone, if you're honing a knife or sharpening a knife, that's the same length as your blade. And so my favorite stone for small pocket knives like this, believe it or not, is this right here. If you look, it's just a little bit longer than my knife blade. This is an old Smith's soft Arkansas. It's like 4x2, a little bit bigger, I think, but not much, like 4 1/4 by 2 and 1/4 or something like that. But it's just a small little stone. And I set the bevel on this stone, or refresh the bevel, or however it is you want to call it, because the knife was sharp before and I didn't damage the edge. I just had to bring the sharpness back. And then I finished, believe it or not, on this little bitty thing. This is you could almost hide that with the knife that I used on it, okay? This is a Norton Translucent Arc, 1x4, I think it is. And put a scalding edge on that blade because it was all I needed. And I didn't have to dig out a big, huge stone or anything like that to do it with. These stones, if I was to take that knife out in the woods with me, if I was to take a smaller knife, because I use a lot of smaller knives. I have bigger knives, and a lot of times when I go hunting, I'll take that bigger knife and I'll use that to do things like field dress an animal. But when I'm ready to skin it or something like that, and I haven't done this in a while, I don't hunt anymore. I have physical issues that stop me from dragging big animals out of the woods and stuff like that. So, but when I used to skin, when I skinned an animal, it was with something like this, okay, that has a small, fine edge that I can control really well, and you could take one of these and something like this, or even just this. And if the knife got dull while you were working, just a little bit of whatever, some water, some spit, anything on this Arkansas, and lickety split, you'd have a sharp blade again. You could get back to work. So for knives particularly, if you have small pocket knives and stuff like that, small little stones like this are beautiful. They're wonderful. And you can get like 6x2 stones from several places, Arkansas or whatnot. Okay, so if you have a small tool, a small stone will fit it better. Okay? So, don't dismiss. You can find these at flea markets, stones like this at the flea markets, for like a couple of bucks. And I've got one that's a little bit narrower than this, but the same length. This is like 1 3/4 by 4, okay? I asked the guy at the flea market what he wanted for that, and he said, just take it, okay? And that works really well on knives. It's another soft Arkansas. From what I can see, that's what this is a soft. So, works really well. So what about for razors? Well, stones like this and stones like this are nice for razors. Okay? And I'm not going to tell you that they're not. But there's a stone that I started out with that is just absolutely a fantastic beginner stone for honing razors on. It's this stone right here. This is a 6x2 Suehiro. I believe it's 2 inches. Yeah. 6x2 Suehiro. Now this side is 1K. And this side is 3K. It's a combo synthetic water stone. You have to soak it. A lot of beginner stones are soakers. That's part of the deal. But this is a fantastic hone. I used this hone for a couple of years. And I know I have seen honers, well-respected honers, and not just a few of them, sing the praises of this particular combo stone. I've never really heard a bad thing about it other than it has a tendency to load and you need to soak it and all of that, but that's a characteristic of this stone, is it's a soaker, okay? Whoop-de-doo-dah. So you have to soak it a little bit. For the price of this stone, it comes with a little base. I don't know if I have it laying around here. It's probably put away. I had to take the, I had this wrapped up because I don't use it anymore, and now I wrapped it up to keep it safe. But this stone, a beginning straight razor honer could go buy this stone and use this stone, and a 1K, 3K, get you an 8K, or go 1K, 3K, and then move on to 1 micron lapping film, or 3 micron, 1 micron for a finisher, and you'd have a slamming edge. I know because I did it. And there are people, this is like a hidden gem in the beginner straight razor honing world. It's this little 1K, 3K Suehiro. It's a small, it's not huge, but you can see some older videos on my channel where I use it. It's not a huge stone, okay? But it's a slamming good stone, and it'll give you an edge just as good as anything else if you take time with it and use it right. So when we start thinking about things like this and understand that, look, to start honing, you don't need to spend a ton of money for one, and for another, I don't have to have big, huge stones like all these guys that have spent all that money on if I ain't got the money for it. Okay, there are alternatives that work really well. So what about things like finishers? One of the finest finishers you'll ever find is a conical. They're wonderful stones. You can buy like a small bout, or boo, I think they call it, really, really cheaply. And this is like 2 inches wide by, I don't know, 4 inches or so long. That's a 2x8 Arkansas stone. Puts a slamming edge on the razor. Now when you finish on smaller stones, you need your technique. You need to be careful with your technique, so go slow and stuff until you get it down. But that's a good economical solution, and it's worth considering. Or what about this stone? This is a Shobu, and it's about 5 inches by 2.5, 3 inches, about 3, a little bit over 3, 3.25, 3 1/8 wide by probably 5 inches at its narrowest or shortest. Well, no, probably about, yeah, it's about right. Probably right around 5 inches or just under on this shortest side, and well into 5 inches on the other side. But a Shobodani is a fantastic finisher. And I use this stone with a Tomo that a friend of mine made for me from another, I guess, damaged J-Nat or whatnot. By the way, if your technique is really good, I've finished on that little bitty thing. And it's a slamming, it puts a slamming edge on. But, I mean, don't think that you have to have $500 worth of stones or $300 worth of stones to hone a straight razor. Don't, you know, I mean, the J-Nats, you see guys with J-Nats as big as that. There ain't nothing wrong with that. If you can afford that, I'm glad you can. Okay? More power to you. That's awesome. Okay? I can't afford big, huge Shobu or any other kind of J-Nat, and probably never will. But that's not slowing me down a bit, because that right there is fantastic, and then you'll get the same edge off of this as you'd get off of one that's that long and that thick and that wide, okay? Because it's technically, they're basically the same stone, the same type of stone from the same type of place, and that kind of deal. And if I work this stone properly, I can get the same result. So our small hones, worth your time, yeah. And in my opinion, a lot of times also, if you're really serious about what you're doing, they will teach you humility and they will teach you technique, because you don't have all the room you've got to play around on the bigger stones. And so you have to make every lap, every pass count to get the most out of the stone. So, but I mean, that's all I got for you today. That I wanted to talk about this subject because I think that there's a misconception out there that you have to have big, huge stones and stuff to hone straight razors or sharpen knives, and no, you don't. So, all right, bless you. I'll talk to you later.